Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're doing something a little bit different.
A little bit.
We aren't just, reciting dates or memorizing the names of battles.
No, this is much deeper.
We are trying to decode the social DNA of modern India. We are going back to a specific moment in time, the 19th century, when Indians essentially looked in the mirror as a civilization and didn't like what they saw.
Not at all.
And more importantly, they decided to smash that mirror and, well, build a new one. It's a story of courage, intellect, and some absolutely radical shifts in thinking.
It really is. It's often called the Indian Renaissance, but I think that term almost undersells it.
How so?
Because it wasn't just a rebirth of old ideas, it was a complete restructuring of the Indian mind. We moved from, you could say, medieval stagnation to modern rationalism in the span of just a few decades.
Wow.
And this is the bedrock. It's the foundation upon which the entire freedom struggle was later built. I mean, you can't have a Gandhi or a Nehru without the groundwork laid by the people we are going to be discussing today.
Exactly. It's the prequel to the independence movie.
Yeah.
But before we jump into this awakening, I have a very special welcome for all of you listening.
A very important one.
This deep dive is brought to you by the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. We are diving into their comprehensive analysis of Tamil Nadu board history today, which is just a fantastic resource.
It really is. And, we want to take a moment here to humbly ask you, if you are finding value in this, if this helps you connect the dots for your preparation, please subscribe to the channel.
Please do.
It supports the mission immensely, and, it helps the algorithm get this content out to other serious learners who need it.
And if you are capable, and I want to stress, only if you are capable, please consider supporting the team on Patreon. Creating this level of detailed breakdown, it takes a lot of resources, and it's that support that keeps these deep dives coming.
It makes a huge difference.
A massive, massive shout out to all our current supporters. You guys are the real heroes here. You really are.
Absolutely. Also, don't forget to like the audio or video, and please share your valuable comments. We actually read them.
We do.
It helps us know what you want more of, what's working, what isn't. It's a two-way street.
It really is. And for those of you who might be panicking about taking notes while you're driving or cooking, don't worry. We've got you covered.
Yes.
Free notes with practice. Previous year questions, we call them PYQs, are available on the public Telegram channel. The link is right there. Go grab them.
But if you want the red carpet treatment,
A premium experience.
that's it. Access to all the videos of this series at once, organized premium notes, really detailed explanations, extra PYQs, and model mains answers. Well, for that, you need to join the private Telegram library.
And how do they do that?
Just DM us on the public Telegram channel to join. It's a game changer for serious aspirants who want everything organized in one single place.
Okay, housekeeping done. Let's get to the mission. Today we are covering socio-religious reform movements, based specifically on the Tamil Nadu Board Class 12 History, Chapter 13, and of course, a stack of UPSC papers we've analyzed.
We are in 19th century India, the awakening.
I always found that term interesting. Renaissance. It implies a rebirth of something old. But was it really a rebirth? Or was it, the birth of something entirely new?
That's the question, isn't it?
Because when I read about these reformers, they seem to be borrowing so heavily from Western ideas.
And that is the central tension of this entire deep dive. It's the clash and, in a way, the marriage between what we call revivalism and reform.
All right, break that down for us.
Well, on one hand, you have the undeniable influence of Western education, of rationalism, of humanism, all coming from the British encounter. But on the other hand, you have this deep, deep desire to look back at India's own ancient texts to find dignity, to find the true past.
So it's like they were saying, we don't need to become British to be modern.
We just need to be better Indians.
Exactly. It's a fascinating push and pull, and we're going to link all of this directly to UPSC prelims and mains questions as we go along.
Perfect. Let's start with the man who really kicked it all off. The morning star of Reformation, Raja Rammohan Roy.
The first modern man of India, as he's so often called.
That's a heavy title. Why him? Was he just like the first guy to learn English really well?
No, it's much deeper than just language. He was the bridge. Rammohan Roy didn't reject Hinduism, And he certainly didn't just accept Christianity, even though he admired the ethical teachings of Jesus.
So what was his approach?
He loved the philosophical depth of the Upanishads, but he absolutely hated the corrupt practices and the rituals that had crept in over the centuries. He wanted to purify Hinduism.
So he was trying to separate the signal from the noise.
That's a perfect way to put it, a perfect analogy. He looked at the rituals, the idol worship, the superstitions, and said, this is noise. This is not the essence. He preached monotheism, the belief in one God.
And he fought against idol worship, tooth and nail. He saw it as a degradation of the original pure philosophical texts. And to give this idea an institutional form, in 1828, he established the Brahmo Samaj in Calcutta.
But the Brahmo Samaj wasn't just like a Sunday prayer group, right? It feels more like an intellectual salon when you read about it.
It was an intellectual powerhouse. It was a place where people debated reason, ethics, humanity. But Roy knew that philosophy alone doesn't change a society. You need action.
You need to get your hands dirty.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to his most famous crusade, the one everyone remembers him for.
The fight against Sati?
Yes, the fight against Sati.
The practice of burning a widow on her husband's funeral pyre.
Yeah.
It's just hard for us to even conceptualize that today.
It is horrific.
Yeah.
And we need to look at the data here because the numbers tell a story. The source material mentions that William Bentinck, who was the governor general at the time, was actually deeply distressed by a report he received.
What did it say?
It showed 800 cases of Sati in a single year.
800?
800. And that was just in Bengal.
Wait, pause right there. 800 cases in one province. That's not some rare ancient custom. That's a systematic crisis. Why was it so high in Bengal specifically? Any idea?
That's a brilliant question. While the text doesn't explicitly detail the Dayapaga school of Hindu law, which was prevalent in Bengal, historians often point to it.
Okay.
Under this school of law, widows actually had certain property rights. They could inherit. So there was this grim, horrible economic incentive for the husband's family to get rid of the widow.
To secure the inheritance.
Exactly. It wasn't just piety. It was often pure, cold-hearted greed.
That makes it infinitely darker. So Bentinck sees these numbers, he sees this horror, and he decides to step in.
He does. And Bentinck was different from a lot of previous British administrators. Most of them were terrified of touching religious customs. They didn't want a rebellion on their hands.
The prime directive of don't interfere.
Right. But Bentinck saw this and decided it was an offense against what he called natural justice.
Natural justice. I love that phrase. It implies there are laws that are higher than any religious or customary laws.
Exactly. So with the immense support of Rammohan Roy, who was creating public opinion, writing petitions, digging through ancient texts to prove that they didn't actually mandate sati.
Right, he was providing the intellectual ammunition.
He was. With all that in place, Bentinck passed Regulation XII in 1829.
1829. That is a date every single listener needs to tattoo on their brain. It's that important.
Absolutely crucial date. It made sati a punishable offense, a crime. It started in the Bengal presidency, and by 1830, it was extended to the Madras and Bombay presidencies as well.
But Roy wasn't a one-issue reformer, was he? I feel like we sometimes pigeonhole him as the Sati guy, and that's it.
We do, and it's a huge disservice to him. He had a holistic vision for India. He realized that the caste system was, and I'm quoting him here, the greatest hurdle to Indian unity.
The greatest hurdle.
He saw it as a fragmenting force. I mean, how can you be a nation if you can't even eat a meal with your neighbor or marry your children to each other?
So he was talking about national unity way, way before the political freedom struggle really took off.
Precisely. The social groundwork had to be laid first. He advocated for intercaste marriage, he fought against child marriage and female infanticide, and he was a massive proponent of women's rights.
Specifically?
Specifically their right to inherit and hold property. He was trying to give women economic agency, a way to be independent.
And education. That seems to be a recurring theme with all these reformers.
It's the key that unlocks everything else. He knew that the traditional Sanskrit tolls, the old Orthodox schools, were not going to prepare Indians for the modern world.
They were stuck in the past.
They were great for producing priests, maybe, but terrible for producing administrators, scientists, or lawyers.
So he founded the Hindu College in 1817, along with David Hare.
Yes. He was a huge advocate for Western sciences, for rationalism, for English education. He believed that English was the key to opening the window to the world.
He also used the press really effectively, right? I imagine without Twitter, he had to get his word out somehow.
The press was his megaphone. He used newspapers and journals to spread these ideas to a wider, literate public. He was essentially the first Indian to truly understand the power of media for social change.
And he didn't just write in English, did he?
No, that's a key point. He wrote in Bengali, in Persian, in English. He met people where they were. A true polymath.
So Roy is the synthesizer. He takes the best of the West and the best of the East and tries to blend them. Now let's pivot to someone who had a slightly different vibe.
The very different vibe.
Dayanand Saraswati.
Ah, yes. The Arya Samaj. If Roy was all about synthesis, Dayanand was about revivalism.
I always get the sense that Dayanand was a bit more fiery, a bit more aggressive in his approach. His motto was back to the Vedas.
That phrase tells you everything you need to know about his philosophy. Dayanand Saraswati believed that the Vedas were the source of all true knowledge, not just spiritual, but scientific as well.
So he looked at the contemporary Hinduism of the 19th century with the idols, the Puranas, the caste rigidity, the superstitions, and said,
this is not our religion. This is a corruption. This is a later degenerate addition.
So he wasn't trying to move forward to a new synthesized future. He was trying to move back to a golden past.
In a way, yes, but it's important to understand that he interpreted that past in a very modern, rational way. He founded the Arya Samaj in Bombay in 1875, and he laid out all his ideas in his major work, a book called Satyartha Prakash.
What were the core beliefs? Was it just everyone go read the Vedas?
It was strict, uncompromising monotheism, the absolute rejection of idol worship, and here's where it gets really nuanced and important for the exam.
Okay.
He rejected the caste system based on birth.
Wait, unpack that for me. He rejected caste based on birth.
Yes. He accepted the Varna system, the fourfold division of society, into Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, but he argued it should be based on merit in action, karma, not on who your father was.
So in his view, a Brahmin's son isn't automatically a Brahmin if he acts like a fool.
Exactly. And a Shudra's son could become a Brahmin if he had the aptitude and the character. That was an incredibly radical stance for the time. It struck at the very heart of the hereditary system.
It sounds almost meritocratic.
It was.
But let's talk about the more controversial stuff, the Shuddhi movement.
Right. This is where the Arya Samaj really shifted the socio-religious landscape. The Shuddhi movement was a ceremony designed to bring converts back into the Hindu fold.
So if someone's family had converted to Islam or Christianity, maybe generations ago,
the Arya Samaj provided a ritual pathway for them to return to Hinduism.
Why was that so significant, so controversial?
Because traditionally, Hinduism didn't really have a conversion mechanism. You were born into it. That was it. Shuddhi, for the first time, turned Hinduism into a proselytizing religion, one that actively seeks to bring people in.
Like Christianity or Islam.
Exactly. And this, of course, added a new communal dimension to the religious reforms that had very long-lasting impacts on Indian politics, leading to increased tensions.
The Arya Samaj was also huge on education, right? I went to a DAV school, so I know the name, but I never really connected it to this history.
There you go. And you're a perfect example of its legacy. DAV stands for Dayanand Anglo-Vedic. After Dayanand's death, there was actually a major split in the Samaj, a schism, over the future of education.
A split? What were the two sides?
Well, one group, you could call them the College Party, was led by figures like Lala Hansraj and Lala Lajpat Rai. They favored a curriculum that included Western education and the English language alongside Vedic studies, hence Anglo-Vedic.
They wanted to compete in the modern world.
They did. They wanted to produce nationalists who could engage with the British on their own terms.
Yeah, the other group.
The other group, led by Swami Vivekananda, were the traditionalists. They believed that Western English education would corrupt the youth and weaken their culture. They wanted a traditional Gurukul system based strictly on Sanskrit and Vedic philosophy.
So what do?
They went on to establish the Gurukula Kangri at Haridwar. So you have these two distinct educational legacies coming out of the same movement.
But looking at the landscape today, the DAV schools are they're everywhere.
They are. The legacy of the DAV schools is absolutely undeniable. They produced generations of Indians who were modern in their thinking, but very much rooted in their indigenous culture.
Okay, so we have the intellectual reformer in Roy and the fiery revivalist in Dayanand. Now let's talk about the universalist, the man who really took Indian spirituality to the world stage, Swami Vivekananda.
The patriot saint. He founded the Ramakrishna mission, named after his guru, the mystic Ramakrishna Paramahansa.
Ramakrishna was a very different kind of figure, wasn't he? Not an intellectual like Roy or an activist like Dayanand.
Completely different. Ramakrishna was a simple priest at the Dakshineswar Kali temple near Calcutta. He didn't write books or give lectures. He taught through parables, through stories, through his own ecstatic experiences.
And his core message?
His core message was religious universalism. He said that all religions are just different paths leading to the same God. His famous saying was, Jatra Jiv Tatra Shiv. Wherever there is a living being, there is Shiva. Service to humanity is worship of God.
But it was Vivekananda who took that very spiritual internal insight and gave it a very practical external turn.
He absolutely did. He turned it into a mission of service. His philosophy was, in a nutshell, service to mankind is service to God. He argued that you cannot possibly find God in a temple if you ignore the starving man right outside the gate.
Now that brings us to the UPSC angle. This is a question students often have. Why is a monk, a spiritual leader, considered a key figure in Indian nationalism?
Because Vivekananda wasn't just telling people to meditate and be quiet. He preached strength. He famously said, religion is not for empty bellies. He felt that a colonized people, a people who had been beaten down for centuries, needed to regain their self-esteem.
Their confidence.
Their physical strength, their mental fortitude. He wanted iron nerves and muscles of steel. He was psychologically preparing the nation for the long, hard fight for freedom.
So he shifted the focus from personal salvation to national salvation.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. He made spirituality a tool for national regeneration.
Now, in this same bracket of universalism, we have a very interesting, almost unusual organization, especially because it was founded by foreigners. The Theosophical Society.
Yes, this is a fascinating story. You could almost call it a reverse colonization of the mind. It was founded by Madame Blavatsky, a Russian, and Colonel Olcott, an American.
And they started in the U.S.
They started in the U.S. in 1875, but they soon shifted their headquarters to Adyar, near Madras, in India, in 1882. They felt India was the true spiritual home for their ideas.
But the big name here, the one everyone associates with Theosophy in India, is Annie Besant. She looms large over this entire period.
A powerhouse, an absolute force of nature. She was Irish, came to India in 1893, and essentially became, as they say, more Indian than the Indians. She played a massive role in popularizing Theosophy, which drew very heavily from Hindu philosophy, karma, reincarnation, Upanishadic thought.
I want to pause here for a PYQ alert, because this is a perfect example of how UPSC can trip you up with details. There was a question in the 2013 prelims about Annie Besant.
Yes, let's break that one down. It's a classic. The question asked the candidate to identify the correct statements about her.
Let's hear them.
Statement 1. She was responsible for starting the Home Rule movement.
Okay.
Statement 2. She was the founder of the Theosophical Society.
Right.
And Statement 3. She was once the president of the Indian National Congress.
Okay, let's play along. Let's fact check these for the listeners. Home Rule movement.
True. Absolutely true. She launched it in 1916, parallel to Bal Gangadhar Tilak.
Okay, 1 for 1. President of the Indian National Congress.
Also true. She became the first woman president of the Congress in the Calcutta session of 1917.
Crucial fact. The first woman, not the first Indian woman.
Correct. The first Indian woman was Sarojini Naidu later on in 1925.
Okay, now for the tricky one. The one that's designed to be a trap. Statement 2. She was the founder of the Theosophical Society.
And that is false.
But she is the face of it in India.
And that's the trap. She was the president of the society later after Colonel Olcott died. She was its most famous leader, its greatest champion. But the founders were Blavatsky and Olcott.
So the lesson for aspirants is?
Precision is key. You cannot conflate leader with founder. Read every word of the question carefully. UPSC loves these little distinctions.
Love that. Okay, so now let's move from the philosophical to the trenches. The fight for social equality. Specifically, the battle against the caste system and the fight for women's rights. We have two giants here, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Jyotiba Phule.
Let's start with Vidyasagar in Bengal. The name Vidyasagar itself tells a story. It literally means ocean of knowledge.
It wasn't his last name, was it?
No, it was a title given to him by the Sanskrit College in Calcutta for his absolute mastery of the texts and of Sanskrit grammar.
But he didn't use that mastery to maintain the status quo, did he?
Quite the opposite. He weaponized his knowledge of the ancient texts to prove that the status quo was wrong. His main focus was the remarriage of Hindu widows.
And the plight of widows in the 19th century was just horrific.
Unimaginable. Shaved heads, being forced to wear only a white sari, social isolation, often forced starvation. They were seen as inauspicious, a burden.
And he argued that this treatment had no religious sanction.
Exactly. He challenged the orthodox Brahmins on their own turf. He went into the Shastras. He cited the Parashara Smriti, and he proved that widow remarriage was actually sanctioned in certain cases in the ancient texts. He beat them at their own game.
And he didn't just win the debate, he got the law passed.
That's the key. He translated intellectual victory into social action. He lobbied tirelessly, and the result was the Hindu Widow Remarriage Act of 1856.
Who was the British official involved? We know Bentinck was the one for Sati.
Well, the act was drafted during Lord Dalhousie's time, but it was finally passed under his successor, Lord Canning.
Okay.
And specifically, the source material we're looking at mentions a J.P. Grant, who was a member of the Governor General's Council, as the one who actually tabled the bill.
Right.
That's a potential prelims factoid right there, the name of the official who tabled it.
Noted. Now let's move from Bengal to Maharashtra. We meet Jyotiba Phule. And this feels different. Roy and Vidyasagar were upper caste Brahmin men reforming from the top down. Phule feels like the voice from the ground up.
He absolutely was. That is the critical distinction. Phule came from the Mali caste, the community of gardeners. He didn't just want reform, he wanted a revolution against what he called Brahmanical supremacy.
He saw the caste system not as a religious division, but as a form of
slavery. He wrote a book called Gulamgiri, which means slavery. He saw the caste system as a form of mental and social enslavement of the lower castes by the Brahmins.
He founded the Satyashodak Samaj in 1873.
Yes, the Truth Seekers Society. His mission was to uplift the lower castes, the Shudras and Atishudras, and to liberate them from the mental slavery of the caste system. And he knew, like Roy, that the key was education.
If you keep a people illiterate, you keep them enslaved.
That's the formula. So he and his wife, Savitribai Phule, they are absolute icons today.
Pioneers.
Total pioneers. They opened the first school for girls at Pune in 1851. And we have to just imagine the scene. When Savitribai would walk to the school to teach, people from the Orthodox sections would throw mud and cow dung at her.
That's unbelievable.
She had to carry a spare sari with her every day just to change into when she arrived at the school. That is the level of resistance and abuse they faced for simply trying to educate girls.
It's heartbreaking, but also incredibly inspiring. This connects beautifully to a mains question from 2017.
Right, let's look at that. The question was, and I'm paraphrasing, defying the barriers of age, gender, and religion, Indian women became the torchbearers during the struggle for freedom. Discuss.
So how do we link these early reformers, like the Phules and Vidyasagar, to that later participation?
You have to draw the timeline. You have to show the cause and effect. You simply cannot have the mass participation of women in the Gandhian movements of the 1920s and 30s, women picketing liquor shops, marching to the sea in the salt satyagraha.
You can't have that without this first step.
Exactly. You can't have that without the groundwork laid by people like Phule, Vidyasagar, and Annie Besant in the late 19th century. They broke the initial barriers. They fought against purdah. They fought for education. They created the first generation of educated women who could then go on to become leaders themselves. It's a direct chain reaction.
It really is. Okay, now let's widen the lens. Reform wasn't just a Hindu phenomenon, was it?
Not at all. The zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, was affecting every community in India. In the Muslim community, for instance, you had a very sharp divide, a bifurcation between two major schools of thought, Aligarh and Deoband.
Let's start with Aligarh. The name we associate with that is Sir Syed Ahmad Khan.
Yes, the Aligarh movement. Sir Syed was, above all, a pragmatist. He looked at the condition of the Muslim community after the 1857 revolt, and he saw that they were devastated.
How so?
The British were deeply suspicious of them, blaming them for the revolt, and because the community had largely rejected Western education, they were falling further and further behind in getting government jobs and positions of influence.
So his solution was basically, if you can't beat them, join them.
In a sense, yes. He wanted to reconcile Islam with modern science and rationalism. He argued that the Quran, when interpreted correctly, does not contradict science.
And he created institutions to promote this idea.
Key institutions. He founded the Mohammedan Literary Society in 1863, and most famously the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in 1875.
Which later became Aligarh Muslim University.
That's the one. His goal was the modernization of the Muslim community to secure government jobs, to secure their status in the new India. And to do that, he advocated loyalty to the British rule. This, of course, put him at odds with the rising Indian National Congress later on.
And Deoband. They were the flip side of the coin.
The Deoband school was the complete opposite. It was founded by the Orthodox ulema, the religious scholars. It was revivalist.
And their objective.
They had twin objectives. First, to propagate the pure teachings of the Quran and the Hadith. And second, and this is crucial, to keep alive the spirit of jihad against the foreign rulers.
So if we were to simplify it for our listeners, Aligarh was pro-British and modernist.
And Deoband was anti-British and traditionalist.
That's a clear distinction.
Broadly, yes. And leaders who came out of Deoband, like Mahmud-ul Hasan, later gave the movement a strong political anti-colonial flavor. They eventually supported the Congress, unlike the Aligarh movement, which drifted towards the Muslim lead.
What about the Sikhs? Punjab must have been a hotbed of activity.
Punjab was buzzing. It started, like many others, with religious purification. You had the Nirankari movement, founded by Baba Dayal Das, which focused on worshipping God as formless Nirankar.
Okay.
Then you had the Namdhari movement, started by Baba Ram Singh.
The Namdharis are the ones who wear white clothes, right? The white turbans.
Yes, and they practice strict vegetarianism. They were also politically very active against the British. But the big institutional change came with the Singh Sabhas, which started in the 1870s.
What was their main concern?
They feared that Sikhs were losing their distinct identity. They were worried about Christian missionary activity on one side and the absorbing influence of Hinduism on the other.
So what was their solution?
Education and literary revival. They focused on promoting the Punjabi language and the Gurmukhi script. They established the Khalsa College in Amritsar, which became a premier institution.
But this eventually evolved into a more political struggle, the Akali movement.
It did. That happened in the 1920s. It was a massive, nonviolent agitation to liberate the Gurudwaras, the Sikh shrines, from the control of corrupt mahants or hereditary priests.
And these mahants were treating the shrines as their personal property.
Exactly. They were misusing the offerings and the land. The Akali movement was a successful struggle that forced the British to pass the Gurudwara Act, which placed the management of the shrines in the hands of an elected body, the SGPC. It showed, again, how religious reform leads directly to political organization.
And briefly, the Parsis, a small community but always super influential.
Very influential. They were quick to modernize. The Parsi Religious Reform Association was formed way back in 1851.
And the leaders.
Figures like Ferdunji Nauroji and S.S. Bengali, they published a journal called Jagat Mitra, which means friend of the world. Their main focus was on improving the status of women, raising the age of marriage, removing the purdah, and reforming their marriage customs to be more uniform and modern.
Okay, now we are going to dive into a section that is very specific to our source material, the Tamil Nadu Board textbook, and it's crucial for anyone looking at the Southern perspective on these reforms.
This is often neglected in the more Delhi-centric textbooks like Spectrum or even the standard NCERTs, but the TN Board book covers it beautifully. And we have three main figures to discuss here.
Who are they?
Saint Ramalinga, who is also known as Valar, then Sri Vaikunda Swamigal, and finally the giant of them all, Periyar EVR.
Let's start with Saint Ramalinga, Valalar.
Born near Chidambaram, he was a prodigy, a mystic from a very young age. His philosophy was beautiful and simple, Jiva Karanyam. He had compassion for all living beings, and he meant all. There's a famous line of his where he says, "I wither when I see a withered crop." He felt the pain of the plants, the animals, everything.
Wow. And he created institutions as well.
He did. He established the Samarsa Sudha Sanmarga Sangha in 1865.
Yeah.
And later, the Satyanana Sabha in 1872. This was a hall of wisdom where he worshipped God in the form of light or Parunjati.
And he also set up a feeding house, right? A place for the poor to eat.
Yes, the Dharmasalai at Vadalur. He lit a fire there to cook food for the poor in 1867. And the incredible thing is, and it's maintained by his followers to this day, that fire has never been put out. It's been burning and feeding people continuously for over 150 years.
That is incredible. A living legacy. Okay, next we have Sri Vaikunda Swamigal in the Deep South in the Travancore region.
He was a massive challenger to the caste system in what was then one of the most orthodox and restrictive regions of India. He was known as Arya, which means father, and his path or cult is called Ayavasi.
He used some very interesting and powerful symbolism. I read something about mirrors.
Yes, this is fascinating. He established Nizolthangals, which were simple places of worship, not elaborate temples, and unlike in Hindu temples where the deity's idol is the focus of worship,
He installed mirrors.
he installed mirrors. The idea was to signify that God is within you. When you look for God, you see yourself. It's a powerful message of self-respect and dignity for people who were told they were polluting just by their very existence.
And he also wore a turban.
Yes, which was an act of defiance. It was forbidden for lower castes to wear a turban or cover their upper body. So by doing so, he was making a potent political statement.
Speaking of self-respect, that brings us to the biggest name in South Indian social reform. Periyar, EVR.
The most radical of them all. Periyar wasn't interested in purifying or reforming religion. He wanted to dismantle the structures that he felt were inherently oppressive. He started the self-respect movement in 1925.
And his principles were,
Yeah.
they were uncompromising.
Absolutely. Rationalism, atheism, anti-Brahmanism, and women's liberation. He famously attacked the laws of Manu and the Ramayana. He argued that if a religion justifies your degradation, then you should reject the religion itself, not just try to reform the degradation.
He was also a key figure in the Vaikom Satyagraha.
Yes, in 1924, in the state of Travancore, this was a historic struggle for the right of lower castes to simply walk on the roads surrounding the Vaikom temple.
Not even to enter the temple.
No, not even to enter, just use the public road. Periyar traveled there, gave speeches, got arrested, and was jailed for his participation. He was hailed as a hero of that movement.
And he used journals to spread his radical ideas. The pen is mightier than the sword.
Very much so. Kudirasu, which means republic, Purachi, which means revolution, and Viduthalai, which means liberation. Just look at the names of his papers. They are all political, all revolutionary.
He also introduced self-respect marriages. This is still a legal form of marriage in Tamil Nadu today, isn't it?
It is. It was revolutionary. These marriages had no priests, no Sanskrit rituals, no sacred fire. It was just a simple secular contract between two equals, a man and a woman. It was a direct blow against priestly authority.
He received some pretty high praise for his work.
He did. He was given the title Periyar, meaning Great One, at a women's conference in 1938. And in 1970, UNESCO gave him a citation calling him the Socrates of South Asia.
That is high praise indeed. Now, Periyar's movement was primarily social and cultural, but it had a political parallel, or rather a political predecessor, the Justice Party.
This is a perfect case study for our listeners on how social movements translate into political power. The Justice Party was born out of the non-Brahmin movement in the Madras presidency.
Why did it start? What was the specific grievance?
The statistics were stark. Brahmins were a very small percentage of the population, maybe 3%, but in the early 20th century, they held the vast majority of government jobs and seats in educational institutions.
So the non-Brahmin elites felt shut out.
Completely. They looked at the Home Rule movement, led by people like Annie Besant, and felt that Home Rule would just mean Brahmin rule. They wanted a share of the power.
So they formed the South Indian Liberal Federation in 1916.
Yes, led by figures like Dr. T.M. Nair, P.D. Chetty, and the Raja of Panagal. They published a newspaper called Justice to air their views, and the name stuck. People just started calling them the Justice Party.
And they actually came to power, didn't they?
They did. Under the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms of 1919, which introduced diarchy, the Congress boycotted the 1920 elections. The Justice Party contested, won, and formed the government in Madras.
And their time in power is often called the golden era of social legislation.
It really was transformative.
Let's list some of their achievements. This is high-yield content for Maine's answers on social justice.
Okay. First and foremost, the Communal Government Orders, or GOs, of 1921 and 1922.
This introduced reservation in government jobs.
Yes. This is the ancestor of today's reservation policy in India. They mandated that appointments in government services had to be distributed among different communities. Non-Brahmins, Brahmins, Muslims, Christians, depressed classes. They institutionalized affirmative action.
What about education?
They introduced policies for free and compulsory education. And here's a fantastic fact that people often miss. They experimented with the midday meal scheme in some Madras corporation schools.
Wait, the midday meal scheme? I thought that was a post-independence thing started by K. Kamaraj.
Kamaraj and MGR massively expanded it later and made it statewide, but the seed, the pilot project, was planted by the Justice Party way back in the 1920s to improve attendance among poor children.
That's a great nugget of information. And they also created the Staff Selection Board in 1924.
They did, which was later expanded and became the Public Service Commission in 1929, the very first in India.
So the body that conducts the exam our listeners are preparing for, the UPSC, has its structural roots in these Justice Party reforms.
In a direct way, yes. They also tackled temple corruption.
How?
With the Hindu Religious Endowment Act of 1921. Before this, temple funds and vast lands were often treated as the private piggy banks of the hereditary trustees. This act brought temple management under state supervision to ensure the funds were used for the public good.
And for women.
They granted women the right to vote in 1921, way ahead of many other provinces. And with the tireless work of Dr. Muthalakshmi Reddy, who was India's first female legislator and a Justice Party appointee, they passed the act to abolish the Devasi system.
That is a massive legislative record. It really shows what happens when social reformers actually get their hands on the levers of power.
It's the difference between advocacy and action.
Okay, we have covered a lot of history. The stories, the emotions, the laws. Now it is time for what we call the PYQ Blitz.
Let's do it. We have the source papers right here. I'll quiz you. Let's see how sharp you are today.
All right, bring it on. I'm ready.
PYQ 1. From the 2022 prelims, it's about the Bhakti saint Ramanuja. The question asks for his correct teaching. Option A, the best means of salvation was knowledge, or jhana. Option B, the best means of salvation was devotion, or bhakti. Option C, the Vedas are eternal.
Okay, so Ramanuja is the great proponent of Vishishtadvaita. He's a central figure in the Bhakti movement. So it has to be devotion. It has to be Bhakti.
Correct. B is the answer. He countered the very dry intellectualism of Advaita Vedanta by arguing that bhakti was the path of salvation accessible to everyone, not just high-caste male scholars.
Next one.
PYQ 2, also from 2022 prelims. A question on the Somnath Temple. This was a tricky one. 3 statements.
Let's hear them.
1, it's one of the 12 Jyotirlinga shrines. 2, the temple was described by the traveler Al-Biruni. 3, the Pran Pratishtha, or the consecration ceremony of the modern temple after independence, was done by President S. Radhakrishnan.
Okay. 1, it's a Jyotirlinga. Yes, definitely. 2, Al-Biruni described it. Yes, he wrote about Mahmud of Ghaznī's raids on it. The third one, Radhakrishnan. That feels... I'm not sure.
Think carefully. It was a very famous, slightly controversial event right after independence.
No, wait. It was India's first president. It was Dr. Rajendra Prasad.
Bingo. It was President Rajendra Prasad. Prime Minister Nehru actually advised him not to go, citing the secular nature of the state, but Prasad went anyway, stating it was a matter of personal faith. That historical tension makes it a memorable fact. So statement 3 is false.
PYQ 3, from 2020 prelims, about indigo cultivation. The question asks, why did it decline by the early 20th century? Option A, peasant resistance. Option B, government bans. Option C, unprofitability due to new inventions.
This is a classic economic history question.
It's C. It has to be C. The invention of synthetic dyes in Germany.
Correct. Once cheap, mass-produced synthetic blue dye hit the global market, the natural indigo grown in India, which was very labor-intensive, simply couldn't compete on price. The entire market collapsed almost overnight.
PYQ 4. Also, from 2020 prelims, Lord Wellesley established Fort William College in Calcutta. Why? A, to promote Oriental learning. B, to provide jobs to Indians. C, to train British civilians for administrative purposes in India.
Wellesley wasn't running a charity or a university for the arts. He was an empire builder.
So it's C. He needed his young British civil servants to learn the local languages, the laws, the customs of India, so they could govern and tax the population efficiently.
Exactly. It was a training ground for the steel frame of the British Raj in India.
Last one. This one is more of a mains perspective point from the 2013 GS1 paper. It mentions Sangam literature. Now, our source text at one point says something like, Sangam poems are devoid of any reference to material culture.
Oh, that is a blundersome statement if I have ever heard one. It's catastrophically wrong.
So if a student writes that in an exam,
they get a big fat 0 for that point. Sangam literature is rich in descriptions of material culture. It's overflowing with it.
Give us some examples.
It describes the bustling markets of Madurai, the Yavana or Roman ships arriving in the ports with gold and leaving with pepper, the different types of textiles, the food people ate, the houses they lived in. It is our primary literary source for the material history of ancient Tamil Nadu.
So the takeaway for our listeners is read the source books, but always read them critically and cross-reference.
Always. And use reliable, standard textbooks to build your foundation.
We have covered a lot of ground today. I mean, from the intellectual salons of Calcutta to the dusty streets of Vaikom, from the fiery debates of the Arya Samaj to the legislative battles of the Justice Party.
And if we try to, look at the big picture, the trajectory is very clear. We started with the elite intellectuals like Raja Rammohan Roy fighting for reform from the top down.
Then it moves.
Then it moves to the middle class with the Arya Samaj and others. And finally, with figures like Phule, Periyar, and political movements like the Justice Party, reform becomes a mass movement. It becomes political. It becomes about power.
And the key takeaway, the one line that ties it all together for Remain's answer.
Reform was the necessary precursor to nationalism. You couldn't effectively fight the British if you were simultaneously fighting your own brother over caste. You couldn't build a strong, modern nation if half your population women were locked inside the house, uneducated and without rights. The social reformers built the platform that the political freedom fighters later stood upon.
That's a powerful image and a great summary. Here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on as we close out.
Let's hear it.
If Raja Rammohan Roy or Jyotiba Phule or Periyar were alive today, and they opened Twitter or turned on the TV news to see our current debates on religion and caste, would they feel their job was done? Or would they be starting a new movement?
That is an uncomfortable question, but a very necessary one. The work of reform is never really finished, is it? It just takes new forms.
Never. And on that note, thank you for diving deep with us.
And thank you for listening. If you found value in this deep dive, please consider supporting us on Patreon so we can keep this content flowing. Every single contribution helps us dig deeper and produce better notes for you.
And don't forget the free notes and those practice PYQs are waiting for you on our public Telegram channel. Go grab them right now.
And for the truly serious aspirants, the premium notes with Model Mains answers are all in our private library. Just DM us on Telegram to join up.
Like, share, comment, and keep learning. This is the Simplified UPSC by BPP channel. We'll see you in the next deep dive.